Episode 84 of the podcast. This week we're starting off with the critical question. What do I do when the dog does whatever, whatever? And then the second part, we're going to talk about the ways to make progress. And I've knocked it down into 3 Ps, the 3 Ps to make progress. So tune in this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. What do I do when this dog does this thing? XYZ, whatever. What do I do then? What do I do right now when this dog is doing this thing? It's such an important question, and one of the most common questions that I get. It's one of the most common questions that I see online. Here's the problem. Are you ready for it? Because I don't think you're going to like the answer. It's the wrong question. So at that point, you're putting out fires. You're responding to problems without really having the chance to look for the causes. You're just getting to stop whatever is happening right then. It's not going to give you the long-term behavior results that I think and hope that you want. So when something happens and you're put into the position of responding to an unwanted behavior, you're just putting out fires. Okay? So let's talk about what we do when we respond, because clearly it's important. We need to have, can't just keep on going, right? So what do we do in that moment? And this should apply to every dog. What do we do when something happens and you're put in this position where you have to respond to an unwanted behavior? The response should be to keep everyone safe, reassess what's going on, reassess what needs to be done, and if it needs to be done today, and if there are other tools you can use. That seems too simple, doesn't it? But that really is what it is. Because in that moment, what you're doing is just, okay, I need to just make everybody safe again. Make everybody safe again, slow everything down, and say, all right, let's take a look. And maybe that means you back off. Maybe that's, okay, let's call mom and dad and say, you know what, we put him in the tub, turned on the water, he's not even wet. And he started screaming and flailing and trying to choke himself out and trying to kill us. Take him home. We'll talk more, right? Whatever it is, safety is the baseline. So I want you to be thinking about if something is happening, a dog starts to respond in a way that we don't want. Maybe it's a dog that becomes very fearful. Maybe it's a dog that becomes very aggressive. Maybe it's a dog that becomes wildly vocal and is freaking out all the other dogs in the room. Tech talk, freaking out. But I want you to think about whatever that behavior problem is. I want you to think about in that moment, what do I do when this dog is doing that? Is to circle back to making everybody safe. So all of the things that we need to do are about making it safe. Bam, boom, that's it. That's how we respond. And our safety is important in there too. Our safety is important, right? We are pet stylists and we are vet techs and we are veterinarians and we are dog trainers, and we don't need to get hurt at work because a dog is in over their head and just can't handle something. We can step back, reassess, and take a look if there's a way to do this more safely, or if maybe this needs some more training, whatever the case may be. But take a step back, think about safety. So what do I do when I just need a solution? Right? A solution. That's where training comes in. But I need a solution for when this dog does this thing, or this whatever. Yeah. And responding every time they do it isn't in the solution set. Okay, so what I mean by that is if we're constantly waiting until they show us that they are uncomfortable, frustrated, whatever that behavior is, and then address it, we're actually kind of behind the game. We're not in the moment that we're supposed to be in while we're trying to address this. We're back into safety mode. Okay, let's just keep everybody safe. How can we keep everybody safe? Okay, to find a solution is when we get into training, when we prevent the problem, prepare for a problem, and have a plan. So I have the 3 C's I've told you guys about so much. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative. We're throwing in the 3 P's. Prevent, prepare, and plan. Because that's how we're going to make progress. Oh gosh, there's another fourth, a P. But that's how we're going to progress if we get into the training of this. Okay. Now, some of this is just animal handling and some of it is training, but good animal handling is informed by behavior, right? That we have to understand behavior to have good handling skills. And that's really important. So some of what I talk about on this podcast, I've had people say, but she doesn't really talk training. But I think they're expecting like a step-by-step recipe for how we do something, when often what I'm doing is explaining behavior and how we can look at behavior, address a behavior that's happening, and be able to work around it, work through it. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative is all about handling skills. Now, as a training point of view, that's a goal that we're working toward. But from a handling point of view, it's just informed by good knowledge of behavior and what has worked, right? Because every dog is different, but it's worked for me so many times. It's worked for so many others. It's the premise that we're basing all of modern dog training on, is to help dogs be calm with us, comfortable, cooperative, be able to handle the things that we're asking them to do. So from a training point of view, yeah, I don't get into too many recipes on how to teach a dog to be great. But those recipes would be part of a plan, not what I do when this dog is already having trouble, right? That's kind of the stuff that I hear owners talk about. And let me tell you right now with COVID-19, because I'm a house call trainer and a house call groomer, my training business has turned into Zoom conferences. And sometimes people are like, oh, no, you really need to, I need someone in the house with their hands on them. And I know where they're coming from. And what I have to explain to them is that if I can talk to you and gather information from you, and if I can see you and your dog interacting, I actually don't want your dog to put his teeth on you a few more times so that we can respond to it. Like, that's not good training. So I think a lot of us who are not trainers, putting on my groomer hat here, we don't really know that. We're still kind of in the dog owner version of training, right? We're like, no, you need to see it. You need to see him fully go crazy to be able to help me. And that's not really the case. So like I said, with my owners, I've had a lot of people kind of going, no, I really think you just need to, somebody needs to be here in the living room to tell me what to do when he's on the back of the couch. But that's not really quite true, right? If we're just going around responding to what dogs are doing wrong, right, that creates really frustrated dogs, really frustrated owners, really frustrated staff, right? The whole thing is really frustrating, right? If we're just constantly like, oh, no, not again. Oh, crap. Why does he keep doing this? Don't you know it makes me angry? Right? It's not going to help, right? So when we are thinking about that moment when a dog is having a hard time, and remember, they're not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. And if we think back to that moment, it's really important for us to say, all right, I need to slow everything down, figure out how to make everybody safe. Okay. And that's where you might think about, like, what kind of tools do you need? Or what kind of changes could you make? Does this dog not understand being on a table? Right? Just lots of different variations of what a dog could be responding to. Can we let him air dry a little bit and not try to dry his head today? Right? Like, what kind of modifications can we make in our process today to make sure everybody is safe? And safe doesn't mean a dog is going to bite you. That's actually one of the things I hear from owners a lot. They are convinced that their dog would never bite anybody, so therefore their dog is safe. And I have actually shown owners, like, okay, let me show you the gouges your dog just put into my arm. Yeah, you know what? There are dogs I don't want to handle if I have to go to a wedding, right? Because I'm going to be torn up. But he didn't bite me. So sometimes, I mean, I don't do it as a house caller because I'm so choosy about my customers. but when I was a vet tech, like trying to explain to people, it's not about if he bites, but all of that frustration and fighting, he's going to pull a muscle. He's ripping into us. And they're like, oh, I didn't know he hurt anybody, right? They don't know. We need to make sure that people know. It's more than just if your dog will bite me. Maintaining safety is also about not letting this dog twist his little leg off while you're holding his foot, right? Another example of that. I was talking to one of my Yorkie customers about, we're talking about nails. I'm like, it's not about needing someone stronger to hold her foot still. It's about teaching her to hold her foot still, to be comfortable with us holding her foot to do her nails. Because the nail trimming isn't this part that she's worried about. I could do a whole seminar on that, man. Most of the time, it's not the nail trimming that they're worried about. It's all the touching around it. If you trim the nail while they're calm and cooperative and being good, they very, very rarely react to the actual snip of the nail. The nail trimming isn't the problem. It's handling the foot. But it's not about needing someone stronger to hold that foot still or to restrain that dog. That's not what we need. I can pick up hooves on a horse. I can certainly hold a Yorkie still, but she could also flail and hurt herself. So in the moment, when something is happening, what do I do right now? And all of us, when we see it online, like, what do you guys do when a dog just totally freaks out and won't let the dryer near his head? This is the answer. What do we do right then? We backtrack to safety. We make everything safe. Backtrack to safety. Take a step back, think about what's going on, and decide if you need to change the way you're doing it, if there's a change you can make, if there is something going on with this dog. Does this dog need to see the vet? Like, there's so many things that could be happening in that moment. Does this dog need to see the vet? Does this dog have any experience with grooming ever? And I'll tell you what, when I'm taking a dog in, a new dog, and I have this new dog that I've never met, I want you guys to all kind of do this too. I assume that a dog will have some sort of an issue until they demonstrate that they don't. Assume every one of them will. Every single one of them. Assume that they're going to have some sort of an issue and just constantly be waiting and monitoring and trying to help keep them calm, comfortable, cooperative. And when that issue arises, bam, okay, how can we keep everybody safe? And in the next part, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things you can have ahead of time for a prevent, prepare, and plan. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Let's start talking about the ways to make progress. The P's of progress. I think that's what we're going to call it. I don't know. The P's of progress. That sounds good. Prevent, prepare, and plan. So how do we prevent? How do we prevent? One of the ways that we prevent is by assuming that every dog that we don't know is going to have some sort of an issue. Assume it, right? I mean, why wouldn't they have an issue? God, we do such weird stuff. So first, we're going to assume that they have an issue. We're going to prepare. Like, what do we do if a dog has an issue? What do we do? Right? And I talked about, well, we're going to try to maintain safety. Safety for us, safety for the dog. Remember, when dogs have an issue, when they're acting aggressively, when they're stressed out, when they're flailing about, whatever it is, that's when dogs get hurt, people get hurt, and equipment gets broken. Unsafe. Ta-da! I know, I make it sound like, oh, that's easy. Right? That is unsafe. So dogs under stress are not safe to groom. And that stress could be an older dog that you're like, you know what? I'm just worried about this dog having a little heart attack or a stroke or a seizure on my table. Right? And sometimes you need to tell people exactly those words. I did that with somebody last week. I'm like, I know she's had this done all her life, but she is 16 now and she doesn't want to do it anymore. Excuse me, there goes my voice. She's 16 now and she doesn't want to do it anymore, right? We need to lower the stress level and adjust for what she can handle, because at 16, she's a different girl than she was at 15 and a half, right? So sometimes we need to explain to people, this is our new routine for this dog, because we have to keep everybody safe. It's not about if the dog is going to bite us, and it's not about if our tools are going to hurt them. Like it's a bunch of things, right? We can't just narrow it down to just one thing. So I want you to be thinking about preparing for those dogs. Sometimes that's the owner conversation, and having a plan for when you get into the weeds and a dog is having a response that you can now go, you know what? I'm just going to backtrack to safety. Backtrack to safety. Backtrack to safety. It's a haircut. We're pet stylists. It's a haircut, right? At the vet's office, there might be times when you have to do something more, but you also have access to medications that if you need to, medicate a dog to be able to do a full exam, it's an option for you, right? But we always have to be thinking about safety. And pushing dogs past what they can handle should not be considered safe. So if it's absolutely necessary for medical reasons, by all means, be careful. Be careful for yourself and be careful for the dog, and try your best. Groomers, no, there's no point where the grooming is so important. If it is that important, we can send them to the vet for that. Okay? Because I'll tell you what, your owners are going to throw you under the bus. That dog gets hurt at your grooming shop while you're trying your best to work on them while they're frustrated, or while they're flailing, or while they're scared, and they get hurt, they're going to throw you under the bus. And it's going to come up that, you know what, you weren't treating that dog in a way that was safe. Because it's not safe. So, safety, safety, safety. So what are some of the ways that we can prepare and plan? First of all, have a safety policy. I've mentioned that so many times before. In fact, I think that was the first episode that I dropped one of those down there. But a safety policy, something to the effect of, we need you to understand that if your dog becomes scared, becomes frightened, becomes overly excited, becomes frustrated, we need to reassess what we're doing, and we need to maintain the safety of your dog. We may not get the trim beautiful today. I love beautiful trims, but I might not be able to get it beautiful today, because your dog's behavior is very important to me. And for your dog to learn how to trust us and to be good is going to be a long-term process, or maybe a short-term process, but it might not happen today. He might not get the full grooming today. I, of course, charge for the time that I spend working on your dog. And make sure you're charging for it. Don't be apologetic that you couldn't finish a trim on a dog who is clearly having a hard time. Take a deep breath, relax. That's part of preparing. Do not be apologetic. Be informative. Educate the owners, right? And by having a safety policy and preparing, they're hearing it before you take the dog out back. Let them say, wait, so you're saying I might pay X amount of dollars and he might not be done today? Yeah, he's over here in the corner shivering before we even bring him into the back room. He's standing next to you, behind your legs, shivering. Yeah, he might not get done to a perfect trim today. Let me explain why. It's all about educating your owners, making them feel like you care about them, care about your people. They don't understand until we teach them. A lot of people have no idea what we do, right? We have to teach them. We have to teach them that this is scary for some dogs, and that dogs that are scared can behave in ways where they could get hurt, we could get hurt, equipment could get broken. It could be very dangerous to try to finish getting that one little hair next to his lip. Because, it's always like a dog that's totally, totally nervous, that wants to bite at the clippers and stuff that, the owners are like, but what about that little piece on his lip? I'm like, the part that he bites with? Yeah, we're not going to get to that today. It's okay to tell people that. That is literally where he's going to get hurt. Right? We don't have anything that is safe that cuts hair. If it cuts hair, it can cut skin. And I'll tell you what, part of your preparing and talking to people, people don't know that. They're like, even the vet said it was cut with something that was probably sharp. Like, during a haircut, of course he was. All of our equipment is sharp. You're literally paying us to put sharp equipment on your dog, right? So we need to be able to be prepared to talk to our owners. And before that dog even acts up, maybe that dog is acting great. You're like, you know what? Just in case, I want to let you know about our safety policy. If he becomes really worried, if he becomes really squirrely, if he becomes over the top, if he really can't not handle more than a certain amount of time, which is so common with puppies, right? Like you get like 20 minutes in and they're like, I'm done. I cannot handle anything more. You have to be able to tell people that, hey, we need to calm them down. We might not get everything completed the way that we wanted to today. I, of course, will still be charging you for my time and my expertise. If that makes you feel better, tell them I will be charging you for my time and my expertise in teaching your dog to be better for this, for the long-term health and care of your dog. So that's part of preparing, right? Prepare the owner before we even get in there. Prepare yourself for the idea that this owner already knows that this dog may not be perfect today. And then when a dog has an issue, you're not sitting there going, oh my God, no, she is so fussy. And she said she really needed him perfect. And she really needed these ears perfect. And I just need a second person. And maybe, this piece of equipment and this piece of equipment. And somebody just hold him down. And I know he's screaming. Just make sure nobody comes in while he screams. Get away from all of that. Get away from all of that. You're going to feel so much happier in your career when you do. Get away from all of that. I want you grooming for a long time, right? That kind of stuff causes burnout. And, of course, injuries, right? But I want you to think about preparing your owners, telling them ahead of time. Then when that dog is doing that, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to backtrack, see what I can do, move around to another side. Like there are other things that we can do, and that's part of the planning. So first we prevent and prepare. We're going to prepare our owners. We're going to prevent some of these issues from coming up, if we can, by preparing our owners. Okay? And then we can make plans. Ooh, plans are fun. So part of the plan could be, she says he's always been worried about his nails. Great. So I'm going to bring him in, and I'm going to, while I'm brushing him out, kind of assess how he feels about having his feet touched. Assess. Think about it. How's he being for just his feet? Is he already kind of giving me the whale eye? And the whale eye is when they look from the side. They aren't looking dead at you. They're looking from the side, and their eyes are so big. Even in my voice, you can kind of see like the, ah. Their eyes are super, super wide, and they're staring at you like, oh no, right? We know that's a dog who's getting ready to spring into action. We know that's a stress. So let's just remind ourselves that, okay, well, let's take a look. So the dog that is worried about nails or has been told, the owner's been told that this dog isn't good for their nails. Yeah, it's part of what I would do. Part of my plan is to find out how they are for their feet. How are you going to be for your feet? So I'm going to get a brush in there, maybe a comb, get touching toenails while I do it, right? How does this dog feel about the way I have to hold to touch a toenail when I don't have the clippers? Right? Make a plan. And plans can be something that are very, very individual, which is part of why I don't often have like the recipe book of plans, right? Like you think about dog training books and it's like, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. My plans are usually based on the dog in front of me. But if you know that a dog has a particular issue, then you can plan on working around it. So not only do I get that dog on the table and start looking at how they are about their feet, then I move on to something else. You know what happened? They had their feet touched and nothing bad happened. Ooh, that's kind of nice. They had their feet touched and maybe some brushing. They had their feet touched. Then the second time we come around, they had their feet touched. Maybe a little bit of clippering. They had their feet touched. Maybe a little bit of scissoring. They had their feet touched and their nails touched and nothing bad happened, right? Then later on you come over and you're like, Okay, I'm going to pick up your foot and one toenail and stop. And they're like, huh, well, that wasn't scary either. Think about how many repetitions of that wasn't scary. I got in there. It's a little bit of extra time. That's okay. I charge for my time. Charge for your time. Dog grooming is a luxury service. They could go home and groom their own dog. I know somebody just swerved off the road. Someone else's eyes are rolling in their head. Don't sprain anything, roll in your eyes. They can groom their own dog. It'll look like crap. It won't look good. But dog grooming is a luxury service. It is necessary to keep your dogs clean and healthy. It is not necessary to bring them to a professional groomer to do it. So if they are really worried about, I'm not going to pay you, they can do it themselves until they realize that this is worth paying for. Oh, it is so worth paying for. So be thinking about that planning is multiple steps where nothing bad happened. Let that dog learn that you're touching their feet all over and you're aware that they had an issue, right? By the time you get around to doing the thing that they're really worried about, be prepared to not complete it. That's okay. We don't necessarily learn it all in one day. That's all right. If you were afraid of spiders, all right, let's say you're afraid of spiders. Am I expected to, during a human haircut, get you used to tarantulas walking on you? Is that part of your haircut today? I know my hairdresser would be like, oh my God, tarantulas and hairdressing, that's terrible. But if you're at a human hairdresser and we're like, okay, and while we're doing your haircut, we're also going to get you used to tarantulas. Don't worry, the tarantula has a chocolate and he's just going to walk over onto your face to put it in your mouth, right? Somebody out there is like, God, stop it, right? I mean, there's a lot going on already. And if they're afraid of something, we might not finish it today. We need to make them feel more comfortable about it. It's not about giving up. It's about picking how much a dog can handle and trying to maintain the 3 C's. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative. How long can we keep this dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative while we introduce different pieces of what's happening? So plans are neat. Plans are about making sure that we're thinking ahead of time. And we're not just like, oh, well, he's really worried about nails, so let's just go for it, right? When I first said, like, okay, I get him on the table and I start working on his feet, I bet you guys thought, oh, and then she's just going to go for it and do those nails. Nope. I'm going to start working on his feet. How does he feel about his feet? What other things will he let me do with his feet? Because that's really what happens with nails. That's actually what happens with many of our grooming dogs, is that there's something about the way they're being held and the feeling on their body. Not necessarily, I hate having my eyes touched or my feet touched. Sometimes that's a matter, so it's around the eyes, sometimes that's a matter of an owner who crushes down on their dog's nose while they pick out eye boogies, and they don't know that they've closed their dog's mouth and pinched off their nose, and their dog is suffocating. Their dog can't breathe. And then they're doing it so rough. Oh, I watch owners doing it and they're like scraping across the dog's eye, like, there's a little sore under there. Yeah, it is a little sore under there. Wet that down. Peel that off with something else. So some of these dogs have learned, I hate it when people touch my face that way, because it has hurt in the past, or it's been uncomfortable in the past, or scary in the past. So part of our plan should always be helping them remain calm, comfortable, and cooperative, helping to build their confidence slowly, gently, working around them. And I often groom faces first, because then if they become a little bit worried, I can circle back to the face. Because I can keep circling back over and over and over again. The dog's there for a while, right? During a grooming, it might not be the most ideal to keep circling back to a particular spot, but it's going to be more effective to teach them that, hey, I'll circle back, do little bits. And each time, each one of those little bits was successful. Each time one of those little bits did not hurt the dog, did not scare the dog, did not make them worry, right? They're building confidence. They're like, oh, this might not be so bad. That's how we make real progress. Circling back, getting it done, right? But charge for it. Charge for it. If they are not willing to pay you for your time, your professional time, they're not your customer, right? Like, explain this to them, explain why it's important. But if they're like, I don't care if he gets hurt. I mean, really, how hurt could he get? He's a little dog, right? How much could he do? You hear that one a lot. Explain to them how their own dog could get hurt just by trying to fight their way out of whatever's happening. Tell them, talk to your owners. So be thinking about having a safety policy in place. Be thinking about committing to those 3 C's, keeping a dog calm, comfortable, and cooperative, and making sure that you're ready for owners' questions. Making sure that you're ready to say, oh, this is the best I could get today. We made some real progress. I'm really hopeful that next time he comes in, we can get even more done. Right? Here's your bill. This is what I'm charging you. Own it. Own it. And don't worry about, what do I do when this dog does, right? When you get into those moments, just let it go, right? Just back off, return to safety. Safety mode. That's what we're in that moment. Just let's make everybody safe. Don't worry about if the dog's head is half done. Just go back to safety. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.